Hi board gamers, and welcome back to Not Board Gaming. I'm your host, I'm Mark, and this is yet another in the occasional series of A Cult of the Old, where we look at a slightly older game that's available for board gamers. Now today is April the 422nd in the year 2020, and lockdown because of the COVID virus has been in effect for maybe 4 or 5 millennia now. So we've all had plenty of time to stay indoors and start playing a little bit more of our board game collection. Now, one of the things as board gamers is, before COVID-19 and the coronavirus pandemic hit the world, is that we all complained that we would love to play games more. We just did not have the time. Of course, the coronavirus meant that most of us, not all of us, have been kind of locked, if not within our houses and our rooms, and certainly within the gardens, etc., with limited outdoor movement, which means that we've had more time, potentially, to play board games. Some of my legacy games have come out more. So, yeah, Gloomhaven came out, has hit the table more times for me. Aeon's End Legacy has come out and hit the table more times for me. So it's been an exciting time for legacy games. So when the very nice people at Stonemaier Games contacted me and said, hey, we're going to be doing a reprint of Charterstone. Would you like a copy of Charterstone to review? I thought, you know what? Let's do that. Let's review the physical version of Charterstone from a solo perspective by Stonemaier Games. Now, as most of you will know, if you've been keeping abreast of the news, Charterstone has just had a digital release as well. But I'm going to look purely at the physical game of the kind of competitive, not civ building, but kind of village building, worker placement, resource management game of Charterstone, and let you know my thoughts from a solo perspective about how this game plays. Now, ordinarily, I'd probably show you inside the box. It's a legacy game, and therefore I don't want to spoil anything. But in reality, when you do open the box, you're just greeted by more white boxes other than the board itself, because obviously you have to unbox and uncover things as you play the game. I will say that I will try to make this review as spoiler-free as possible. However, I am talking about a legacy game, and to show you the board and to show you some things, there may be some minor spoilers, but there's going to be nothing in here that is absolutely genuinely going to spoil the entire experience of Charterstone for you. So, without much further ado, let's have a look at how Charterstone by Stonemaier Games plays. So, Charterstone by Stonemaier Games is a Stonemaier Games worker placement game where you are going to be playing one of 6 citizens who've been kind of decreed to by the Forever King. You live in a village in a place called Green Gully, to go out and explore these vast lands outside of Green Gully and build new villages out there. Now, I will say off the bat, if you have played any Stonemaier worker placement type games, so viticulture, etc., then you know what the score is here. You will get so many pieces that you will put on board to take resources from. Those resources will then allow you to potentially buy cards, upgrade certain things, and try and improve your game, and ultimately you will gain victory points and scoring from that. And that is in essence what the mechanic is in Charterstone. It's kind of a cutie, cartoonish little worker placement game where you will use some really beautiful, high quality components to try and beat and get the best score amongst either the people you're playing with, or from a solo perspective, the automers that you're playing with. Now, quite cleverly, what you can do is actually use one automa to kind of to control multiple adversaries in this game. So up to 5 other adversaries can be controlled by you, by the automa playing against you in this game. What I've done for my game is I set up 2 adversaries, so it's me and 2 automa adversaries dealing from one automa deck. I'll explain how that works in a wee while, but that's in essence what this is. It is a cutesy, lovely, with nice little artwork kind of worker placement game that, while it feels basic, it can offer a little, surprising level of depth in there. But is that enough to keep the game working from a solo perspective? So opening up your game of Charterstone is quite an exciting experience. The first thing you're going to do, or you're going to see, is your lovely blank board. Now the board is dual-sided. It's the same on both sides. As you can see on this side, without me showing too much away, this is my board of kind of the campaign in progress, and here's how it starts here with blank. And what you're going to do is you will eventually add stickers onto the board, and we'll come to that in a bit. You're also going to get to choose a particular charter, and that's these things here. And what this is effectively going to be your player for the entirety of your campaign. Now, there are 6 that come with this, and as I say, you can, as a solo player, you can play against any other number of kind of Automa charters as you play the game. I'm playing against 2, and what you get inside this box, which has got lots of little stars and things on there, and areas where you'll write on the back, and little kind of trophies down there that you'll fill in, is you're going to get effectively your starting basic resource, and that's going to consist of these lovely kind of wooden worker meeples. It's going to consist of a scoring marker, and it's going to consist of these kind of little octagonal resource cubes, and you get maybe 12 of those, and that's it. What you're also going to see as well is you're going to get your Charterstone Chronicle. Now, this is effectively your rule book for the entire campaign. Nice iconography on the back, but what you'll notice mostly when you open the rule book is there's going to be lots of blank space, and that's because the rulebook is quite progressive, and that's a very exciting thing as you're learning to play the game. You're going to start filling in, getting stickers and sticking it in the rulebook, and most of these were added as I've been playing the game. Same with the story at the back there, and as you're playing more and more games, you unlock more and more things which change the way in how the game plays each and every time you play it, and that's quite an exciting thing to do there. So we've got our kind of resources, our starting charter, we've got the rule book. We've also got an Automa rule book as well, which again allows you to put certain stickers in there to progress that. And then we've also got our scriptorium. Now, this is possibly the only thing I will show you at this stage from the box, and this is a deck of cards. I'll not show you exactly what they do or how they do, but they do drive the game. They become a resource in the game itself, and also the the very propulsion behind uncovering things and sticking things on your board. In terms of other resources that actually drive the game forward, you've got some really nice quality components. First of all, you have these lovely metal coins. They're really nice and weighty. I'm sure if after you finish the Charterstone campaign, you could use them in a game like Gloomhaven. You also get some wooden brick representation there, and some wooden coal, and you also get some wooden wood. And then you also get wooden yellow and wooden blue, and then wooden orange as well, because like can be the case with some worker placement games and some resource management games, it's almost irrelevant what these are. They represent spaces on a board and represent resources that you will sacrifice one to get another and build up to buy so many things. So the actual true representation of what they are is less important. However, they are really nice quality components. So you've got a good amount of wood and metal and card in terms of the board, and certainly card in terms of the cardboard, the cards that you get to drive the game, as well as all these wonderful white boxes which contain many different mysteries. Okay, so far so good. We get a nice board, we get a progressive rule book, we got some nice quality components as well. We know it's a kind of a card-driven game, we know there's an Automa, we know it's worker placement, resource management, and you're building a village up as well. And there are progression points, there are victory points as well, and we know it's a legacy game, so all that is all well and good. So how exactly does the game work? Now, to show you this, I'm going to try and make it as spoiler-free as possible. I will be focusing on a small section of my existing board for my existing campaign, but I won't really give away any kind of gameplay secrets. I'll just let you know how the game progresses. So the key element of the game is this kind of progressive building of your village and of the entirety of the lands that you're in, to try and get more powerful buildings in place so you can generate more resource, so you can then get more powerful buildings to then generate more victory points and ultimately try and win the 12-game campaign. So initially you're going to start with once your charter's been given, you will get given a persona, and you can change these personas as you go through the game as well. So this one is the basic one that comes when you first get your particular charter, but there are other ones that will have powers which you can then use throughout the game. key element is, as I'll show you here, is kind of unlocking stickers so that you can put these stickers on your board and create more and more powerful buildings, which will create more and more resources. Now, there are a plethora, an absolute wealth of these stickers, and that is these cards here. So what you have to do is effectively unlock these stickers so you can place them on the board, and to do that you've got to collect your resources. So for example, look at my particular persona here, and I want to unlock this card, which is Monument. I already have 2 red brick resources. I already have 1 blue ore resource. All I need is a coal resource. I would take one of my worker meeples, and here we go, trying to show you as little of the game as possible. I would place it on this particular basic resource, this particular basic building. All charters come with a basic building, and that would then generate me 1 coal resource, which would now give me the ability on my next move to take this sticker off here and place it on my board. Sounds simple? Not necessarily so, because generating resource is only one part of this. You see, once I've got the resources to allow me to actually take this sticker off, I then have to make another action which will allow me to do that. So what you do is you will take another one of your workers and you will place it on the Zeppelin, and these are the commons, and these are on every board in the middle here, and these spaces effectively give everybody some common actions. This one allows you to build, this one allows you to open a crate, this one is allows you to complete some objectives, this one allows you to generate some income, and this one allows you to get some advancement cards from the market. But however, for this time being, all we're doing is we're having a look at the build option here. So I would place my little worker there, and we know that this particular item is going to cost me 4 resource. It's going to cost me 2 brick, it's going to cost me 1 coal, and it's also going to cost me 1 ore as well. So they would go back into the general supply. What I also have to pay is 3 of my kind of like my marker resource tokens, if you like, and you only get 12 of them each and every game that you play. So that's going to take me 3 of those, which I will put into the general supply. That will now allow me to take this card and take this sticker off this card, and I'm going to do it for you because this is quite an exciting bit. You can see they all peel away there, and if we just pull back a little bit here and focus on my area, and this is the blank side of the board, I would then place that sticker on my board, and I've created a new part of my board, and that's the monument that's now gone onto my particular charter here, and I can use that resource as and when I need to throughout the game. But that's not all, because what happens is when you place these cards, what happens is some of them will have a crate marker at the top. So you've placed the card, you've taken the sticker off, you placed it. If it's got that crate marker on it, you then could potentially perform another action which will release more cards. However, starting off, I only get 2 workers, and I use both of those in this particular action. One of them I used to get a coal resource, and then the other one I placed on the Zeppelin so I could build and put the sticker on the board. That means my very next go, I have to then use that to pull those workers back from the board so I can use them in the go after. Now, what that means is that then the Automa will then continue potentially its turns, and I'll come on how the Automa works. So you're going to take this sequentially. You know, maybe you go first and you take the first turn, then the Automa will go, then the next Automa will go, and etc. if you've got more Automas there. And once everybody's placed their 2 workers on the board in the early stages, they have to use 1 move to pull those back. However, if I place my worker on the board and the Automa pulls a card out which allows them to place it in the same space, it effectively knocks my worker back into my pile, and therefore I get another go with it. And what that does is then create this kind of asymmetry in terms of turn order. It can create some wildly different turn orders for people, as maybe the Automa is on a stage where it's pulling its 2 workers back and I'm not, because I still have 1 worker I can place on the board. So that does help create the asymmetry there. You see, the Automa, just like you, is working to build up its village and try and gain as many points as possible, and it's going to get driven by an Automa deck. And it's a fairly simple to learn Automa deck, but it does drive the game along nicely. So what you do for each Automa turn, you may have more than 1 Automa around the board, is you turn over a particular card. Now this card It means that I have to effectively roll a Charterstone, the Charter die, and that's this thing here. And that tells me then where I have to place my worker. So for example here, I've rolled blue on the Charter die. So in the blue Charter, I place one of my workers on the lowest value building, going to highest, and from Z to A as well. So say for example, they had two buildings that were value of a 3. It doesn't really matter at this stage what those values are. And one was called, I don't know, the kiln, and the other one was called the garden, because K comes before G. If you're going from Z to A, then I would place one of my Automa's workers on the kiln in that particular charter. It would also score the number of victory points that you kind of dictated to you by at the beginning of each scenario, depending on how well you did it against the Automa in the last scenario. Let's have a look at some of these other cards as well. So that's a very similar one. You roll the dice. That one would tell me to place the worker on the Zeppelin, which is in the common area there, okay? And that's the build action that you would then carry out. So that would then build a card that would be in the advancement deck, and it would also get some progress points as well. And there we go. That one would effectively allow it to open a crate. So it would tell me to put a Automa worker on the Charterstone space, open a crate that would be in the advancement deck, and it would get 2 victory points, and it would also get progress points there as well. And that's how the Automa works against you, kind of blocking your spaces, so to speak, or knocking your spaces, trying to build and open crates, trying to fill up its board at the same time, and trying to get as many of these progress points as it can. These progress things as it can, to make the game over as quickly as possible, so that it can effectively get as many victory points as possible.
I feel like I'm overcomplicating how to explain Charterstone here, and that's because in essence Charterstone is an inherently easy game to learn to play. Effectively what you're going to do is you're going to place your workers to get resources. Once you've got enough resources, that will give you access to something else on the board, and be that a card to open, or a sticker to place, or a chest to open. And once you've done that, that will generate further points for you. It will progress over a number of rounds until the progress is down to 0, and then whoever's got the most points between you and the Automa will win that particular game. And there's 12 games in the campaign scenario. Once you win the game, you mark some things off on your charter, you get some strengths, and the game will have changed a little bit, or in some cases quite significantly, depending on what you've done. Look, because all these cards that you get, whenever you kind of open a new crate, so you put your sticker on the board, that gives you a crate card, you then open that crate, that then gives you access to even more cards from this box, which you will then incorporate into the game. And those cards will contain, I don't know, more stickers, more buildings to play, maybe some minions that you can place on the board which kind of help out in certain areas, or they will absolutely contain kind of rules and story stickers you will put in your Chronicle as you go along, which will change how you play each and every game. And that, in the early stages, is the really, really exciting part of Charterstone. Is you start off playing a basic game, and then as the game progresses and you open more and more crates and more cards, and you're changing the layout of your stickers, and you're putting more pieces on the board, and your characters are getting stronger, you're changing the actual rules of the game itself, and that creates this real need and a desire to continue playing. But it only goes so far. Because the thing about Charterstone is that it's on the face of it, it looks a little bit twee, but it's not. There is a little bit of depth to that gameplay. Like all kind of worker placement resource management games, is the fact that you will be trying to beef up your character and your abilities and score as many points as you can as quickly as possible and over the Automa. And that ability that you get in these games, with it being a legacy game, to physically change the aspect of the game to make it personal to you, is exceptionally exciting in the early stages. As you get these little changes to the gameplay, you can see that your interest is going to be maintained for a little bit further, because you're not doing exactly the same thing. But these changes are just little changes, and this, after a number of plays, kind of is where it starts to fall down. Is that, yes, you're going to be changing the core, not necessarily the core aspect of the game, but you're going to be changing certain rules in the game and how you play the game. But the core aspect is still going to stay the same, and nothing detracts from that, and that starts to become a bit of a stumbling block. How much enjoyment you're going to get out of Charterstone, if you put aside the excitement of the legacy pieces, is how much you enjoy the core game. And to have to play this kind of 12 times, and 90% of the time you're playing exactly the same rules, if you're not enjoying it for that first game or so, chances are you're probably not going to enjoy it by the 12th game. I think what you've got here is a really accessible legacy game that's simple enough to teach non-board gamers. So if you have a family that you're looking to kind of get interested in board gaming and looking at how board games are different and exciting these days, then Charterstone could be the way forward. You do have this, in the early stages, this constant kind of opening of new cards and new tiles and new boxes and adding new things to the board, which feels genuinely exciting. But to try and give you some kind of relation to how that feels in terms of a modern world. So as we know, through the entire coronavirus phase, a lot of people have been using Zoom to kind of have get-togethers, social get-togethers. I've had it with my friends, on a Friday night. We've had some beers, we've all kind of interconnected via Zoom, and we've had, kind of a few hours drinking beer, having a laugh like we used to do when we met up in the pub. The first time that you do that, it's great. You think, oh man, I never need to go to a pub ever again to do this. This is fantastic. And then the more you do it, there is this law of diminishing returns. And by the kind of time you've done this a number of times, you're like thinking, okay, I'll meet up, I'll spend an hour or so chatting, but then I don't want to do this over Zoom anymore. The initial excitement has worn off. The interest has peaked, and now it starts to wane. I've flattened that excitement curve. And that's a little bit similar with Charterstone. What you're constantly trying to do is capture the magic of those early games where you are opening boxes, changing the game, changing how the game feels, making it seem like a personal experience. And for those first 2 or 3 games, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I thought that I would want to get to this to the table more and more. What happens is that, unfortunately, a lot of the things that you open had more setup time to the game, but they don't necessarily add more excitement or enjoyability to the game. So there's something called peril, which adds something onto the board itself, and that just becomes a bit of a bane. I mentioned these minions that you get as well, and again setting them up, and it becomes a bit of a pain, and you don't necessarily get to benefit from them each and every game. Depending on what you do, the kind of your scores against the AI can be a little bit swingy. I've lost magnificently, I won magnificently, and you adapt the scoring system accordingly. Look, I am maybe 8 games now. I am in fact 8 games into my Charterstone campaign. I think I'm done. And why am I done? Well, I think for all the things that I've covered, I think by 8 games in, I've practically uncovered more or less everything I can uncover from this game. Any cards that I open, any stickers that I place, any rules changes that happen to the game from now on in, for me, are going to be minor variations on a theme, I think. The dedication and the amount of time it takes to kind of set up the game as a solo player, play it through, and then put it away again, it doesn't really equate to the amount of reward of enjoyment that I'm getting out of the game for that hour or so that I'm playing it, which is a bit of a shame because, there's a really nice game here, and I could potentially, never play another kind of campaign game in this and just continue to play this game against the Automa, and I would have an okay time. But the aim is, at the end of the 12-game campaign, is that you have a unique experience that you can play as a game on its own, or you buy a reset pack and go through it all again. Look, it's a reasonably priced game. I don't think it's vastly expensive. As an entry market into the legacy experience, I think it's probably worth a punt. And you do get that excitement, as I say, of doing that. But I'm 8 games in. I know there's only 4 games left, but I've got so many other games vying for my attention that I am now enjoying more than kind of getting Charterstone out. It got to the point where I've kind of delayed the review a little bit because the chore of putting the game out on the table just seemed a little bit too much for me. So for me, Charterstone as a solo experience, and maybe I could have done differently on that. I could have set up more automers and had more competition going against me instead of just 2. Maybe that would have done it, but once you set your automa number, that's really roughly it throughout the rest of the game there, so you can't really change. You've got these wonderful components, you've got this great progressive kind of rule book, you've got these changes to the game, you've got this legacy aspect which gives you something new and exciting. You will create your own unique board by the end of your campaign, which will give you an experience that nobody else will have whilst playing Charterstone. The problem is it just outstays its welcome as a legacy game and as a campaign game, and 12 games is just a little bit too much, and the payoff is really not worth, by the end of it, the amount of effort that you're putting in there. All is not lost though, because quite cleverly, as I said, this is it's a decent enough game, it's a nice enough worker placement game, but quite cleverly, what Stonemaier have done in the last kind of couple of weeks is they've released a digital version of Charterstone. So instead of spending kind of £35-40 on the base game, on the physical aspect of the game, you can now spend your £5 or £6, whatever it is, on the App Store and download a version of Charterstone that you can play digitally. Now, that will do one of 2 things. It will do one thing very well and kind of take away from another thing as well. The thing that it will do very well is, of course, there is absolutely no setup time whatsoever. So the sprawling setup that you've got on Charterstone, the physical version as it is at the moment, is not there. It's ready and waiting for you. However, what it does take away from it is going to be that kind of physical aspect of opening up a new box of something, of putting a sticker on the board. Of course, you won't get that with the digital version. You will just get a facsimile of that. But I would say that despite my misgivings on Charterstone as a solo experience, despite the fact that the effort is not worth the reward, I do think that from a digital perspective, if you have the ability and you have the right kind of mobile phone or iPad or tablet, etc., or even I think it's on Steam as well, then by all means download it and play it. There is a nice game here. It may well be that, as I say, you prefer a physical version of a game, and if that's the case from a purely solo perspective, unless it's your first legacy game and you don't want a game that's got too much depth and too much changeability in how it's played, then it could be for you. But in reality, this is probably a legacy game that you want to give to your family or play with your family, that you then want to kind of have that experience of having younger members of your family get excited by opening up something new, placing a sticker on the board, and not having rules that are kind of dumped on them all at once. They are progressively increased, and the game is progressively made slightly more difficult as the game goes on. So yeah, that's it. Charterstone, physical version for me, started off great. Kind of the sheen went about halfway through the campaign, and now kind of 3/4 of the way or 2/3 of the way through the campaign, I'm done. I can't really see me playing it much more. It's not a terrible experience. As a solo player though, yeah, I think there are better options out there, but do, by all means, go and check out the digital version. So that's it, guys. Thank you once again for joining me on this journey. I've been Not Board Gaming. I'm your host. I'm Mark. That was a kind of bit of a whirlwind tour through Charterstone, a slightly older game, which at the time I'm sure was a little bit more groundbreaking than it is right now, but there are better legacy options out there available to you. However, not a terrible game, and it will hold some interest for some people, but do check out that digital version if you can. So once again, thank you for joining me. I've been Mark. This is Not Board Gaming. Remember, you can always like and subscribe to the channel. You can always follow us on Facebook and on Instagram, and that's Not Board Gaming, always BORED. Do like and subscribe to the channel. Do check out our other videos. Do stay at home. Do stay safe. And until next time, remember, if you can't find anybody else to play with, there's nothing wrong with playing with yourselves. Until next time.